Time to re-up YouTube. Your boy Mustard is back and we're here with number 13 of the season preview, the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies were one of the most exciting teams in the NBA last year, led by their young star, future superstar potentially, in Ja Morant. Ja took a step forward towards all-star caliber play as he made his first ever all-star team, and in the playoffs backed it up with some of the better performances of the postseason. He was definitely a little bit suspect against the Timberwolves at times, but he stepped up and closed the deal, and against the Warriors before he went out with an injury, he was giving them hell, I won't lie. But here we are with a whole new season for the Memphis Grizzlies, and they still have adversity because Jaren Jackson Jr is going to be out to start the season for a couple of months. So with Jaren Jackson Jr, the second best player on this team, it begs the question, can the Grizzlies survive without Jaren Jackson Jr, or are they doomed to fail? Now obviously you can see my positioning of them on the season rankings as I have them at 13, so I think ultimately they will make the playoffs. I think a lot of people are somewhat underestimating this Memphis Grizzlies roster and acting like Jaren Jackson Jr.'s loss means they're going to be fighting for a play-in spot and they're not even going to be able to compete come postseason time, and I completely disagree. This team proved last year when they were missing Ja Morant for a good chunk of the season that they can still win games. If you don't think they can do the same thing without Jaren Jackson Jr, I think you're underestimating this team quite a bit, and when he comes back he's going to add value to the roster come postseason time. Jaren Jackson Jr is a phenomenal player, very capable on the defensive side of the ball of guarding multiple positions, can move his feet on the perimeter, and a very good shot blocker. The only knock on him defensively is probably the lack of a presence on the boards and his foul trouble, but for the most part he's still one of the most elite players on the defensive side of the ball. Now offensively, I won't lie, he's been pretty mid to inconsistent. He could put the ball on the floor a little bit and create for himself, but it's not consistent. He could shoot the three ball, but it's not consistent. He can get to the free throw line a little bit, but it's not consistent. I mean, for a big man to be shooting 53% true shooting, you just know offensively you're not consistent. Jaren Jackson is a great player and provides a lot on the defensive end, and he even has some value offensively. He's not a scrub on that end either. But this team is a lot better than I think a lot of people are giving them credit for, and let's just examine it, shall we? Off the bench, I wouldn't consider them extremely deep until Jaren Jackson Jr gets back, but the two players I want to highlight the most is going to be Tyus Jones and Ziaire Williams. Tyus Jones is one of the best backup point guards in the league. You could argue he is the best backup point guard in the league with Marcus Smart starting now. He hustles on defense, and offensively he's actually a really good passer, an underrated passer I would even say. I'm a big fan of Tyus Jones ever since his days at Duke. I followed him when he was in Minnesota. I thought he had a lot of promise in this league, and obviously even though he's a backup, he's still very good and more consistent than your average backup point guard because he stepped in for Ja Morant when he was out with injuries last year and was a big reason why they were able to look like the 96 Bulls without Ja. They also have sophomore Ziaire Williams that I think is going to take a step forward this upcoming season. Last year he showed a lot of promise as a transition player, effective in the pick and roll, a nice lob threat, and as a three-point shooter he's a little bit shaky, but I do think there is some room for improvement for him to grow, and we may see it next season. And on the defensive side of the ball, he never cheats you with effort at all. So when they presumably move Brandon Clarke to the starting lineup, I just think Ziaire Williams is going to fulfill the Brandon Clarke role coming off the bench next season. They also picked up Danny Green this year, and I don't expect to see him play that much if he is going to be able to play coming off of that ACL tear, but if he is cleared and can be 85 to 80% of what he was, then I definitely think he can be a boost to this team's defense on the wing and spacing. But now let's move on into who I believe is going to be the starters on this team. At the point guard, I believe it's going to be Ja. At the 2, I believe it's going to be Desmond Bane, or a combination of Bane or Dylan Brooks, take your pick. Whichever one is not playing the 2 guard, I believe is going to play the 3 guard. They could defend both positions, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. At the 4, I believe it's going to be Brandon Clarke, and at the 5, Steven Adams. When you look at the front court of Brandon Clarke and Steven Adams, I believe they're going to be probably the best offensive rebounding front court in the league. Steven Adams is one of the best offensive rebounders in the game and has been that essentially since he's came in the NBA. And Brandon Clarke is one of the better offensive rebounders at his position. In 19 minutes a game last year, he was averaging 2 offensive boards. And in the playoffs against the Timberwolves, his offensive rebounding was a key factor towards them pulling off that victory. Obviously, neither of them are floor spacers, but they are valuable on the defensive side of the ball and could be good lob threats. Clarke specifically is somebody that I would like to challenge to step up offensively, even though I've kind of given up on his his offensive potential. I don't think he's bad, but ever since he's had to change that jump shot, man, I ain't gonna lie, he's been a little bit suspect. But considering the value that he's gonna bring on the defensive side of the ball, he's gonna more than make up for it along with Steven Adams in the front court to protect the rim. Then you have Dillon Brooks, who's probably gonna be the 3, and defensively, he's one of the best wings in the league. Whether he's guarding Steph Curry or guarding a nobody off the street, he's gonna give 110% effort. Now, is some of that effort a little bit too much effort and he's gonna foul? Yeah, he probably is. But hey, on the defensive side of the ball, too much effort is better than none. Offensively speaking, he can have some nights where he's looking like Kobe Bryant, but then he can have some nights where he's looking like Russell Westbrook in the playoffs. It really is one or the other on most nights, because Dillon Brooks, my goodness, this guy has the IQ of a squirrel at times. The only reason why every game is not filled with the horrible shooting nights for him is because he actually is a really solid offensive player. He can space the floor, put the ball on the floor a little bit and create for himself. It's just that whenever he's on fire, he believes he actually is that dude, when in reality you're not, bruh. You're just having a really nice game. The opposite applies to that of Desmond Bane, who I believe is one of the top 5 to 10 shooters in the NBA, and that isn't even a debate in my personal opinion. Bane last year had somewhat of a breakout season, winning the most improved player of the year. Bane averaged 18 points a game along with nearly 5 rebounds and 3 assists, shooting 46% from the field, 44% from 3 on 7 attempts a game, 90% at the free throw line, which accumulates to a true shooting percentage of 59%. Bane's shooting is so pivotal on this team, especially in a backcourt with Ja Morant, who is not a great floor spacer. Bane's shooting has so much versatility outside of self-creation that it is insane. He's able to shoot coming off of screens and catch and shoot situations, in transition, and though he isn't a great self-creator, in the playoffs last year, especially against the Timberwolves, he showed some potential as an on-ball creator for himself. It wasn't anything like breaking guys down off the dribble, but he could use screens to his advantage when he has the ball and can use some quick shifty moves to create some separation for him to shoot the 3. He has gravity on the perimeter. As one of the best shooters in the league, teams are not going to go under his screens, and if they do, he's going to make them pay for it. And because of the attention he gets on the perimeter, it opens up so much for Ja Morant and others on this team to flow offensively. And on the defensive side of the ball, he's very capable as well. Due to his strength that you could see pretty visibly, he's not going to get bullied. He has good lateral quickness to move himself on the perimeter. And on a team with Ja Morant, outside of Jaren Jackson Jr., who they're going to be without for a good chunk of the season, he is definitely Ja's most important teammate. He complements all of Ja's weaknesses, and Ja complements his. It truly does remind me of the Curry and Clay dynamic. Not saying they're the exact same players, but just how they mesh together and fulfill each other's strengths and weaknesses. But now, while we're on the subject of Ja, that leads me into the final player of the puzzle, Ja Morant, the star last season that took a tremendous leap and showed superstar potential. Ja had a breakout season last year, averaging 27, 7, and 6, along with 49% shooting from the field, with a true shooting percentage of nearly 58%. Ja was one of the best offensive players in the league, and it shouldn't come as any surprise. He was taken number 2 overall, showed a lot of promise in his rookie year, winning the Rookie of the Year award, and in his sophomore year against the Utah Jazz in the first round, he averaged 30 points a game. So it's safe to say that we should have saw this coming. But when he finally came, we were all so surprised just to see how dominant he was as a scorer in the paint. We're talking about all-time great rim pressure here. It didn't matter if he had 2 guys on him, he would find a way to beat them off the dribble because he has a great first step and very fast. And because he's so skillful at the rim to contort his body, you could go straight up in the perfect position as a defender and he'll still find a way to score the layup on you. And if it's not a layup, he can go up and boom it on anybody in the league. He's just that athletic. I truly do believe that when it's all said and done in his career, barring any injuries, he can replace Russell Westbrook, or if you believe it's Derrick Rose, as the most athletic point guard of all time. And because of how great he is at getting to the rim and collapsing the paint, it opens up so much offense for everybody else on the court. In this season, I'm expecting guys like Desmond Bane to continue eating an average 20 points per game, feeding off of that Ja gravity. Dillon Brooks, when he's having his hot nights, he's gonna definitely feed off of it as well, whether he's cutting to the rim, spotting up on the perimeter. And the same thing applies to Brandon Clarkson and Steven Adams. Though they're not spot up shooters, whether it's catching lobs, being in the dunker, wherever they are, they're going to benefit from Ja Morant because teams are going to leave them open for a layup opportunity just to stop Ja and get two guys on him. I mean, we just saw these past playoffs against the Timberwolves and the Golden State Warriors, primarily in the Timberwolves series, where it looked like Minnesota figured out Memphis' game plan of how to stop Ja Morant, as players like Anthony Edwards, Patrick Beverley, and even Karl Anthony Towns was pitching in, and it looked like the Grizzlies were going to lose the series because Ja just wasn't playing very well. But thankfully, along with Desmond Bane, Ja stepped up in a lot of pivotal and key moments to get them the victory in 6. Ja truly is a thing of beauty at the rim. He reminds me of Derrick Rose when it comes to him contorting his body, because the ability to get to the rim and avoid as much contact as possible, I truly do believe it's an underrated art. That stuff is not just a run and dunk thing, it's a skill for real. Now, Ja is not a perfect player. He has to also improve as a defender. And I'm so serious when I say that. Ja is one of the bottom 10 to 15 defenders in the league. There's a reason they were able to look like the 96 Bulls without him, and it isn't because of his offense. It's because of his defense. As for when you look at the on-off numbers in the playoffs and regular season, it's very obvious that defensively they were miles better with him off the court. And as great as Ja is offensively, I don't think you can win a title with a player that bad defensively, especially at the point guard position. It isn't like they got Rudy Gobert back there. They got Steven Adams, who was played off the court last season against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Ja's definitely going to have to improve defensively and show some signs next year of that. He's also not that great of a three-point shooter or that great of a shooter in general. He doesn't take mid-range jumpers, so that's that. And at the three-point line, he is not that good of a three-point shooter, which we all knew coming into the league for him. Now, in the regular season, he definitely showed some improvement, even though most of his threes are wide open for good reason. He still shot 34% on around 4 to 5 attempts. And I know some people clown his stiff-ass jumper, but I don't think it's that bad, especially compared to all the other athletic point guards that have come into this league. It's not. I definitely do believe there's a reality of Ja Morant shooting around 36 to 37%. Whether he's wide open or not, teams are always going to give him the three-point shot just because of how effective he is at the rim. So if he can take that to around 35-36% on a consistent year-to-year basis, it's only going to make him more dangerous of an offensive player and one of the top 10 players in the league, which leads me into my overall thoughts on this team and why I have them at 13. I truly do believe that come postseason time, we could be talking a whole different tune about this Grizzlies team and their contention in the Western Conference. They have depth at key positions, they have very good defenders on the wing, they have floor spacing, and though their front court can be very flawed, they still have good defensive pieces and guys that can give you effort on the boards. Couple that in with a star that is rising into superstar status in Ja Morant, and what's not to like about this roster? Well, I'll tell you what's not to like. They still have key players that can get into foul trouble come postseason time, and the big one is Jaren Jackson Jr, who's still going to be out for a majority of this season. Throw in the fact that Ja Morant in the postseason, they are going to force him to shoot jumpers, and it really is just a make or miss thing with him. We haven't really seen the athletic point guard, quote unquote, win a championship, whether it's due to injuries or that inability in itself. Throw in the fact that players like Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr, they will be returning to the Clippers and the Nuggets, so that's that. And a couple of other teams in the Western Conference I believe are going to take a jump next season. I just think in the regular season those teams will be better. Now come postseason time, I truly do believe the sky is the limit. There's a chance the Grizzlies could be representing the Western Conference if all things go according to plan. Like I said, they have everything that a championship team should want. And if all these players live up to their expectations and some even supersede them, there's a chance they could end up in the finals. But unfortunately, I just don't see that happening, and it's for one simple reason. There are better teams than the Memphis Grizzlies in the West. Plain and simple. But hey, those are just my thoughts. If you disagree, let me know down below in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Press that bell for post notifications. And also, if you want to see more episodes of the season preview, make sure you check it out down below in the description box and on the screen right now. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.